AI War 2 beginner walkthrough continues. The end of the beginning here because I'm planning on wrapping up the tour through all of the major essential systems of the game. Really the only thing that we haven't talked about at all is hacking, and we're going to do some more stuff with scouting and also hopefully finish establishing our buffer zone around the homeworld. I would be remiss, though, if I did not take a moment to thank everybody for the support, positive comments, encouragement, all those fun things that have come in over the last few days at the start of this series. It's gone dramatically better than I expected so far, and frankly, I probably owe a gift basket to all of the big strategy gamers on YouTube who thus far seem to be almost completely ignoring the game. But I did want to extend my appreciation to all of you for joining with me on this journey, and I will continue to try to earn that trust as we move forward. Here in Thab, we've got everything set up. You see, we got a couple force fields over here, and because this is a logistics command station and not our home command station, we have far less available, but at the same time, there actually is one thing that was not available yet, at least, back in Murdoch, and that is the minefields. So up here we have paralysis minefields. They're cloaked, they blow up for a small amount of damage, and they can paralyze small ships as well. So we've got those up in here, we've got our turrets in here, we've got all of our frigates up, all of those kinds of fun things. And then if you're paying particularly close attention, you've probably noticed this up here. This is our notification that something is happening that we should pay attention to. And what this is our first enemy wave. This actually showed up about 2 minutes ago and gave us 7.5 minutes, and that is a configurable setting. I think that this quick start was set up with the longest possible wait time. I'm not certain of that. Just under half a unit of strength for 3 inhibiting Tesla corvettes and 2 Vanguard ships, and they're going to spawn on Murdoch from a specific warp gate in Vazirani. So we do not at all need to do this in this particular case, but I'm going to head over there and make some defensive preparations anyway. So if we come over here, I'm just going to double click on any ship. It selects all of that type. Then you shift to select multiple types, so I'm going to shift and select that, and now you can see down here we've got all of our frigates. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to send them over to the Vazirani wormhole. Then I'm also going to do the same thing with our fleet here. Support fleet, the Odinites, and they're all still needing to build a little bit more. Nonetheless, they can come over here, say hello, and that way as soon as everything pops in, we'll be there in position. We won't have to wait for us to move over there. We'll take a look at that battle when it unfolds. Now, the severity of these waves and the frequency of them is determined by your AI progress and the difficulty of the AI, both of which are quite low. So you can see, like, it's going to be basically at the 20-minute mark of this game before our first one arrives. Then if we pop back out to the Galactic Map, we get different information here. You can see it just will highlight the system that it is headed to. Then of course also with our logistics station set up here, we now have the solid blue line connecting, and this has gone dotted because it is hostile. And we can see we've got a couple other numbers here as well, and these are threat numbers. So there actually is some threat gathering in Shinda and Vibo, not a lot. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about scouting, and I want to go through the way it did in the last game so that you understand why it's done the way it is. In the original game, the way scouting worked was you built a bunch of scout ships yourself, and you'd send them out through the different systems, and they'd go into the system and they'd get hit by tachyon detecting sentinels, dispel some of their cloaks, and they'd take attrition as they went through the system. You had to plow your way through, and it was troublesome enough that I placed a great deal of effort into getting the highest level scout, the Mark IV scout, which I referred to simply as the ultimate info weapon because it was immune to tachyon detection. It could go anywhere, and then you'd scout the whole galaxy and know what all was out there. Developer Chris Park has said, and very wisely, that that was really not a great system because you're prioritizing scouting in the early game, and it's something that was essentially free. You just had to build more ships, and the scouts weren't that expensive, and it was just manual, grindy, busy work. The reason for doing it the way it is now, you capture a planet, you reveal some new territory, is that that's one of the most linear things that happens through the course of the game. AI progress is going to go up, but it's also going to go down. Other aspects, hacking, whatever, science is going to go up, it's going to go down. But you have to gradually expand your empire throughout the game to a certain level. And so tying it to that, seemed the most sensible. And it relieves the player of having to do a bunch of extra tasks to accomplish something that relatively trivial. But the really important thing to know for our current purposes is that there are essentially 3 tiers of planets when it comes to the information that we have about them. There are explored, there's watched, and there is unexplored. And all of the ones, of course, out here are unexplored. And let's take a closer look at that. You can see, we don't have much. If you double click and go in, you can go into the planet, but you've basically got nothing. It's like a distorted view put together by a long-range telescope. You can see that there are wormholes. You can see how many wormholes there are and that there's a planet. You really can't see much of anything else. And that's what all of the unexplored planets in the galaxy are going to look like. Okay, so explored, that would be like Nygaard, say, over here. Our Mark IV planet that we noticed last time. So if we double click on that, you can see it's kind of grainy out here. And this is what it looked like when we scouted it. But we don't get... You can see what all the buildings are. MLRS Guard Post Mark IV. We've got... what's this? Okay, that's a Sniper Guardian ship. And so on and so forth. You can see where everything was, but things will have changed since then. So the exact numbers are going to change, and the longer it's been since you explored it, the less reliable this information is going to be. You can see there's 30 plus ships in each of these, so that gives you a little bit more idea of the increased resistance. And then watched is like the ones that are next to us, or you can see like Vibo here is watched because it's next to a logistics station. And you can see these are, it's just like our looking at our own planet. We can see all the details, everything's moving in real time. We know what's happening here when it happens. Another thing to notice is look at the position of the wormholes. And then if you compare that to the galaxy map, it is essentially the same. Not exactly, but you see Bolo is on the left there, and it was on the left here. Thaf is down this way. These two are off to the right, and they're basically off to the right. So they aren't exactly precise, but they're very close to where these vectors are. And that's another difference between this and AI War 1, which basically had the wormholes in random locations. And this actually makes it, in most cases, more difficult to defend a system, but it also means you can look ahead and know what kind of defensive situation you're going to be in before you even take a system. For example, Mandress here would be attacked from basically every direction but out this way. Okay, that would be kind of a nightmare. Whereas Draken, just as an example, would have two coming from a fairly similar direction, and it might be easier to point all your defensive structures and so forth in that path. Also note that Shinda is permanently watched. Again, the one next to the homeworlds are permanently watched, but Vibo is only watched. And that's because it's not guaranteed to stay that way. You can go from watched to explored, and the way that would happen is if, for example, on Thaf, let's say we switch to an economic command station, which doesn't have vision on the other planets or military, and then this would revert from watched, where we have the current stuff, to simply explored. Which means we would be having old information. Alright, it's time to do some hacking. We're going to drill down into Thaf, first of all. And the panels along the left, we have already done everything except for the outguard. Okay. And there is nothing here. because that's basically about hiring mercenaries. We don't really need to do that right now. You can take or leave that in terms of completing the game. It's not required in any sense. You can find it to be helpful or leave it alone. But then the hacking over here will show any hacks that we can do. And you can see we've got a cost and a duration for how long it lasts. And the longer it lasts, the more enemies we're going to have to fight off while we do it, because we're going to have some of them spawning. And then it's important to look at our tool tips. We'll grant a new ship line to the hacking flagship. And it tells you which fleet's going to do it. Now how that's determined, and this has really confused a lot of new players, is it is done by the closest fleet. We only have the one, the strike apathy in this system. Well, we've got our planetary command station, but they don't count for this purpose. If you've got multiple fleets in a system and you want to hack something, and that will happen, just make sure the fleet that you want to get the new ships in this case, or to do whatever, is closest to the target. Reroll ARS contents, convert ARS to science, will eliminate the station, but it will give you a science boost instead of doing one of the other options. Now, there was a question in the comments, which is the kind of thing I'm not really going to be able to answer right now, and I'm not criticizing the question, but they were excited about doing hacking, and also, what's the best strategy for using hacking points? And my answer is the same one that everybody should be right now. I don't know. The reason I don't know is because stuff is very much actively being changed. There's a new patch that is going to be coming out soon, the first post-launch patch, and I have no inside information on this. I'm going to put the link down in the description to the wiki section, which, that's public. The Arson Games Mantis bug tracker site is public, but they've got a pre-launch and post-launch polish section where they talk about things they're working on right after it's been released, and one of them is they're tweaking a bunch of stuff with hacking. For example, if we look up here, these are considered neutral, so this hack is not going to count against our points spent against the AI. But after the patch, some of the items, including the advanced research stations, are going to belong to the AI, and so it will count towards that. So the response level, meaning the amount of fighting you have to do when you do a hack, will go up. Now, that's a counterbalance to the fact that they're going to cheapen some of the hacking costs. The convert to science is going to result in additional science, slightly more than it is now, etc. So a lot of this stuff is being changed, and I think right now it's a lot better just to understand the flow of the game. The mechanics, the processes you have to go through, what are the core systems, and then once the patch process gradually slows down and people start talking about what's going to be in the first DLC and all of those kinds of things, then, you can get a firmer grasp on that sort of strategic precision. It's really too early to make that kind of call. Okay, so we're just going to get this going. We're going to hack this, grab the ship line, but before we do, let's take a look at some tool tips. I just want to dive in a little bit more to what is available here, because it's important to be able to look at the ships and be like, well, is this something I want or not? So metal cost, pretty self-explanatory. The strength value of each ship there. The hull and the shields value. Being strike craft, obviously not that high. Then we've got how fast it is and how much energy it's going to consume. And then we've got all this other stuff. The engine size, the albedo, the armor, the mass. What on earth does all that do? Well, those are all in relationship to different weapon systems. For example, like some weapons will have a greater impact or a lesser impact if the engine or armor is above or below a certain value, and so on and so forth. Or the mass can affect some of the defensive structures, how much effect they have on a ship. So that's how all those play in. Then we've got obviously a low damage parasite bolt with a range of 3200. The main thing to understand about this is the zombification. And that's what makes the Parasite one of my favorite ships in either game, really, and I'm excited to see it here. What they do is they basically turn the enemy ships they're fighting into zombies that will fight for you. You don't have to pay their energy bill, but you also can't control them. They don't count against your ship cap, but they will go off and fight the enemy on their own. And they may not be fighting in the exact way you want, but turning the enemy ships against them in that fashion is really effective and can turn the tide of battle a lot quicker than simply destroying the ship outright and getting nothing more after that. So they may not have a very powerful weapon when it comes to destroying the ships, but that's going to be okay. They're going to make up for it. Okay, then we're going to hack. And we get our timer started, 30 seconds, and we're going to unpause. Timer's going to cycle downward. There we go. They start popping out. Now they're going to fight us. And look at the frigates. They automatically leap in, and then we've got these engineers going out and trying to do things. Oh, there's more. These are stingrays. Fleet strike apathy leveled up. We haven't gotten to that. Fleets gain experience. We'll deal with that later. Oh, what's that right there? That's a grenade launcher guardian. Well, just for the fun of it, let's go ahead and grab our fleet and have them head down this way and just sort of deal with that. There we go. And then our warning has just disappeared. They were warning us that we have things attacking us here. And let's hold on for a minute. These are our zombie ships if we go in here. So we've got some raptors that we will never be able to control again and that don't count against us, but they are going to look for enemies to fight. And if they don't find any, then eventually what they do is they go sail off to other systems. So they're going to go fly into Vibo a little bit later on and probably get themselves wiped out. Nonetheless, we have our successful hack, and if we look at our fleet, partly because of getting the parasites, and also partly because of having some improvement from the leveling up. You see the transport flagship is now Mark II, and the force field frigate is now Mark II. The others aren't, and some things level up when you get experience, some things don't. Again, we'll get more into that later. But the point is, we've had some improved capabilities, and we've got a new ship, so the fleet is stronger, up from 6 strength to 8. Alright, a couple more barrels of fun to be had for this session. First of all, I want to take out the distribution node. And this is going to be extremely quick, but let's do it anyway. We're going to get that +1 AI progress. There it is. We boosted our science by 1,000 as well. And we got 20 more hacking. So the next system that I want to attack, we'll switch to the Galactic Map to do this, is I want to go up here to Shinda. We're going to get that global command augmenter. I want to see our parasites at work. And we can select the fleets with these as well, but we're already selected here, and we can see that down here, strike apathy. We are not actually going to load up, because we're going to see just how wonderfully painful that is. And it's still control right click to go through the wormhole, but it doesn't matter. Like if I could send them there. Oh, no, I couldn't, because it's unexplored. You literally cannot send your ships to unexplored planets. But I could send them anywhere else. We're going to send them to Shinda, though.
En route.
En route, they say. Well, let's see if they really are. Now, this is like the worst possible way, and I'm just showing why it's a bad idea. Because we got these ships, yeah, gradually working their way through. And if I'd used the group move, notice they're going off to Vazirani. They're not going here. They're following their own path. But if I'd used the group move, they would have been staying closer together, because they would have been trying to move the same speed. They're doing no such thing here. So let's pop in here. And in just a moment, I'm going to do something else intentionally stupid. Force field frigates are out. That should do. Okay, let's take our whole group. And remember I told you not to do this. We're going to put them on pursuit mode. Prepare for carnage. As you can see, this is probably not a great idea. Now, I actually may get away with this. Just because of the sheer firepower, it's a weak system, etc. And you can see them gradually turning these. But obviously we're not coordinating our attacks. We're moving into the range of several guard posts here. And, you know, we're not knocking out guard posts first. We're doing whatever we feel like. Oh, science exhausted at Murdoch, so we get that warning. Let's move all of you on pursuit. Let's not just have some of you be dumb. Let's have all of you be dumb. There we go. And yeah, so we're probably going to get away with this anyway. That does not mean it's a good idea, but you can see them converting these, and they're gradually fighting, taking up some of the fire from everybody else. And really at this point, I mean, there's nothing for me to do in here. I'm just going to sort of let this go. The point was just to show that it's not optimal. As we continue sweeping the system, let's just take a look at some of the hacking options that are here on an enemy system. One, we can hack the command augmenter. We're going to take the system as we mentioned, but it's worth noting that it costs 60 and would last 5 minutes. That would take a while. We could do covert science extraction. This is how you gain extra science. If you don't have enough, you hack enemy planets. Weaken the AI guard post. Doesn't take that long. Reduces their range to 50% of normal values and damage output to 75%. Notice only works on planets of Mark 6 or lower, so the very toughest Mark 7s it would not. And weaken AI turrets. Basically the same deal, only it weakens them even more. So generally speaking, these would be pretty much unnecessary in my opinion, and we should actually, before we sort of close the book on the hacking for this episode, we should look at one more. If we go back out to the Galactic Map, that is the alternative scouting method. Let's say I really wanted to scout this system and I didn't want to take another planet right now. You can explore planets for 5 as well. And you don't have to go there. You can just, it says the hack deploys spy nanites to explore this planet. It's not going to make it watched. It'll just tell me what's there. I'll be able to know if there's any special structures there I might want to capture, what the mark is, what their current strength is. And now to wrap up today's frivolities, we are going to defend against the wave. Notice the timer, it's down to 3 seconds, and it's red. It turns yellow at a minute, turns red when it gets closer, and it's time to see whether or not we can withstand this attack. I think we all know what the answer is. Let's give it a whirl.
Attention, these collisions will be recorded for science, and so we can watch your fleet disintegrate in slow motion, over and over again.
Well, you can blather at us all you want, but we just eliminated you without trying. There will be many moments where that is not the case, but it was no problem here. So we've survived our first wave attack. We have a handle on just about everything. If we look over in Shinda, our fleet in here has more or less cleaned things out. There's a couple of guard parts over here. They're still finishing up these. We'll be able to finish this up pretty quick. We don't have our buffer zone intact yet, but it's going to be here soon. And look at that. Allied mobile strength. That is, of course, our wonderful zombie ships that the parasites have sent off. They're attacking our next target, even though they don't really know it's our next target. From our stated goals so far, we've simply got to clean out these two systems, claim the GCA and the fleet. We can clearly tell that is not going to be a problem. And then we're going to be talking about some longer-term concerns, issues with how we make our way through the galaxy, all of those kinds of joyful things as we move from the early game towards the mid-game. So the introduction to the walkthrough is over, and it's time to get more aggressive. That'll be on the agenda next time. Till then, thanks for watching. Be back soon with more.